Okay, so note to self, probably the best thing to do when I've got these fragrances is not hide them behind myself so I can't find them for a short period of time. Anyway, so yes, quite unexpected, but yes, this is the second episode, a double bill of Is It Still Good in 2019? I just felt as though I must make this episode because of the comments that I made about your Sauvage Parfum being somewhat similar. I thought I should qualify those comments and also, take a look at this. And with my uploading schedule as it is and the frequency of what I've got going on, today was realistically the only day that I could get this out. So you are in fact treated to a double bill. I've just done Dolce & Gabbana 1, and here we are with Diesel Plus Plus. So how we find out whether a fragrance is still good or bad in 2019 is through three factors. The first one is reformulation. Has it survived all of the reformulations? Has it even had reformulations? They are very, there's a lot of them about in the fragrance industry. So if it has had reformulation, has it survived that? Second one is relevance. Is it still relevant today in today's market? I was speaking to a friend of mine, a perfumier, saying we've now got brands that are coming out with 13, 14, 15, 20 fragrances just on launch. We've got YouTubers launching fragrances. We've got a ridiculous amount of fragrance out at the moment. So can it still survive among the ocean of scent that's out there? And the third one is retail price. And I'm just going to tell you straight away, this is an absolute steal, retail price wise, but I will get to that in just a moment. So this was released in 1997. That's a very interesting and kind of a pinnacle time in fragrance. That was the same year that La Mal came out, Jean Paul Gaultier. Other classic fragrances came out around about that time, that late 1990s era. And the thing is that back then, there wasn't really any competition. There wasn't any indie or niche scene in the height that it is now. So designers could take a few more risks without anything bad happening. They could take a lot more artistic risks without worrying about anything like loss or whatever, because Diesel was Diesel. Jean Paul Gaultier was Jean Paul Gaultier. Yves Saint Laurent was Yves Saint Laurent. These brands were the only brands that you could realistically buy. There wasn't the internet, there wasn't Fragrantica, there wasn't websites like IndieSense. So there was a lot more creativity back then, I'd argue, because they didn't have too much to lose. They had stuff to lose, of course, but they didn't have too much to lose. So you look at La Mal and Jean Paul Gaultier was like, yo, I'm going to make a fragrance, stick it in the body of a sailor and present it in a tin can. What? That's mental. But he could get away with it. He could do that. Same with Diesel Plus Plus. The box was a milk carton. This was supposed to have a milk note, and this is representative of a milk bottle. Now, I don't really get that. I'm just going to spray this on right here. I kind of get what's going on, but it's more like a beautifully powdery citrus with definitely some dairy elements. But how I really see it is you have like a lemon meringue pie, and how how like the lemon meringue has a bit of a zesty, kind of tangy bitterness. It's got that, and I could imagine that on the side of that pie there's like cream, right? Or no, I wouldn't even go as far as melted ice cream. I'd just say cream. So you've got the cream on the tangy, zesty lemon meringue, and that's what this is. This is a very, very nostalgic fragrance to me. My father wore it a tremendous amount, and I'd see this bottle very frequently in his art studio at the top of the house, in the house that we lived in Scotland, and it just kind of fit, you know what I mean? The bottle design really kind of fit with more abstract work, so it's really got something about it. So let's go to reformulation. Like I said, my dad does actually have a bottle, so when I went to see him, I checked out his bottle of Diesel Plus Plus, and all I can say is, that's really past it now. That's dead and completely off, because I think he did buy it in the early 2000s. But what I decided to do was take from that, projection longevity. And I put that up against this, and I was very surprised. This is a somewhat recent bottle. This is about a year and a half old. They said at one point that this was discontinued, so I just bought one, but I haven't seen any evidence of it actually being discontinued. It's still very, very heavily available, at least here in the UK on the internet. So this is a recent bottle. It's not the most recent bottle, but you know, it's as recent as about a year and a half, so I think it's a pretty safe bet. And projection longevity, I was stunned because there wasn't too much of a difference. There was a slight decrease, but nothing to write home about. As for scent, I couldn't tell you the differences between the old and the new because the bottle was so off, but this is still very pleasant, still quite vivid, still pretty strong really for a fragrance that's classed as an eau de toilette. And so if it just comes into performance, there ain't much of a difference here. And as for scent, I presume that it's pretty similar, if not the same, because when I smell that, yeah, I recognize the fragrance that my dad used to wear like 20 years ago. So when it comes to reformulation, I'd say that's flying colors. So Relevance, isn't it funny that in 2019, you know, just this month, fragrances released that kind of reminds me of this, but far worse. Yeah. Okay, so the thing is with this is that this is basically, I've now come to the conclusion, I'm actually thinking of doing a full review on Dior Sauvage Parfum, because this is basically just shower gel now. You know, it's shower gel with a kind of a nice opening, pretty solid opening, and then it just dies. And the similarities that I do see, which I do, is you have the zesty, tangy, bittery kind of opening. This has vanilla with it, and this has got a few kind of woodier, yeah, kind of like vanilla elements to it, and it also has a lot of powder. So they both have a zesty, tangy opening that then settles onto a vanilla and then goes and becomes a little bit more powdery. Now this just becomes non-smellable powder that lasts for a good 15 minutes and then it dies. This becomes kind of like a very warming, pleasant, uplifting kind of powder. So the thing is that when it comes to relevance, sorry, I'm still not used to this. I'm used to the little, you know, the thing I used to have. I'd say that this is not as relevant as it once would have been. It's very of the time, you know, it's very of that late 90s style. Late 90s style fragrances were very clean. There was a little bit of powder, but not much. You know, it's Christian Dior with Dior Homme that really kind of kicked that iris kind of really intensely powdery kind of trend that we're now drowning in. With things like Valentino's Uomo and all those kinds of things. But this is still got a really great autumnal kind of powdery casual scent. It's still pretty unique, to be completely honest. I've never really smelt anything that is too similar to it. I've caught echoes and shadows of things like this. But if I was to wear this right now and I was to wear this casually, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. I wouldn't feel like, oh my God, this is really old, I can't wear this. It still has that kind of clean, lemony, powdery appeal that will never really get too old. And because it has a bit of that kind of vanillic kind of sweetness, that lands it pretty decent in today's age, where the vanilla is a note that is used so much and is a note that is extremely in. So I think that it very easily could have become irrelevant and could have very easily fell out of you know, out of favor at this day and age. But the stars have kind of aligned with it. Powderiness is kind of in, the vanilla sweetness is kind of in. Citrus will never die, you know. Citrus has been around since, you know, 300 years ago. So it all kind of fits perfectly quite well. I think that the only thing that kills its relevancy is it is seen as an old fragrance. It is seen as a fragrance that was a hit, a success, and then died. But I'm smelling it now, and there's nothing really wrong with it. And you know what? That surprises me. When I first thought about doing this video, I thought to myself, this still can't be relevant really after all those years. But yeah, it is. And price point, wow, I mean, give me a break. You can get this for 15, 16 pounds online, 75ml. I believe that the 75ml is the only size available. But, you know, it's great. I just want to say also very quickly, the only thing that's a little bit irrelevant, I just want to say, I know I shouldn't really go back here, but the only thing that's a little bit irrelevant is the bottle design. The bottle design is so 90s. But then again, that could be seen as retro now. The fact that the 90s are being seen as a retro thing is a little worrying. It's a little bit concerning, but you know, that's just time, isn't it? So yeah, but when it comes to retail price, you don't even have to worry about it. £15, £14, you might be able to see that this doesn't really have a retail price anymore because it isn't really available retail. You don't see this in shops or stores all that much. It just is kind of around the internet, and sometimes I'll see it in the perfume or the fragrance shop for, again, something ridiculous. Like, I've seen this as low as £6 or £7 in the fragrance shop, so you can't go wrong. Overall, this is, I'm glad that this reminded me of this, because it made me go back to this and it made me realize, actually, there ain't really nothing wrong with this. I just considered it to be an old fragrance because it's a fragrance that my dad used to wear back in the early 2000s and back in the late 90s. But actually smelling this and smelling it up against this, which is the latest release from one of the world's biggest brands, I'd take this, because at least I can smell this and it lasts, and I actually get a bit more of character and a little bit more personality out of this than I do this. So that's pretty crazy. Diesel Plus Plus, mate, A+. You're still relevant, you're still brilliant, and you actually fit, weirdly, very snugly into the canon of fragrances being released right here in 2019. Anyway, I hope that you got the information that you wanted. This was going to be a bit of a joke, but it's actually turned out to be a pretty good, serious look down memory lane. Diesel Plus Plus is still a brilliant fragrance. So until I see you tomorrow, this is the last video of today, but until I see you tomorrow, I'm the Fragrance Price. Cheers for watching. Go buy yourself Diesel Plus Plus. I'm the Fragrance Price. I'm out.